I just did a GPS test. My speedometer says 20, and the GPS said 20, so maybe it is working again. Right on. But yeah, look at this. Ugh. We got a car, baby. Hey there, I'm Jer, and welcome back to the Dirty Gurdy Revival series. After a year of fighting the carburetor, I finally got old Gurdy up and running again. And since I got the car up and running again, I should now start doing some regular maintenance things. First thing I want to tackle is change the fluid in the rear end and the transmission. We are maybe an hour and a half later. Finally got this transmission draining because I've been looking for the drain plug forever because, you know, it's supposed to be there, but it's not. So apparently it's here on the rear of the output shaft, which that's really the only other place you can remove it anyways, because but the thing is, it's not going to drain all the way. It'll drain most of it, but not all of it. That's dumb. Anyways, okay, so I looked at the numbers on the side of this transmission, and it appears to be a 1962 63. Appears to be a 63 transmission. It might actually be out of a vet. So this is a 327 motor. This motor and transmission might be really out of a vet. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows where this stuff came from? I haven't really looked up the numbers on the motor yet. So I finally got this draining. Get as much of this out as I can, and got to get the side plug off because that one's on there pretty good too. So I'm going to change the transmission fluid. I'm going to change the fluid in the rear end, and adjust the brakes, and see if I can get the gas gauge working. That's what I'm trying to do today. So how did I figure out what this transmission was? It's really not that bad. First thing I needed to do was take that big, giant, long casting number and type that into Google. And that took me to some forums and some other places and some random websites. Basically, the information I got was it was made between 58 to 63, which is important, and it's a Saginaw 3-speed. So now that I got the date range figured out, I can now figure out the exact date code, the month, that's the letters at the very beginning of it. And they don't go in alphabetical order, but they do kind of at the beginning. This is a B, which means it was manufactured in February. The second piece of information is the day of the month that it was manufactured. So this was manufactured on the 7th. And then the last number tells you the year, and this year ends in a 3, which is fantastic because that falls within my date range. Sometimes if your casting number isn't clear and you can't tell what it is, and you punch it in and you say, hey, this thing was made between like 65 and 68, and your last number is something like, I don't know, a 2, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is not correct at all. So sometimes it's really hard to break those numbers down. I got lucky in my case and everything is jiving. So I'm very confident that this thing was made in February of 63. While I was under here, I took some pictures of the floor shift conversion that they done on it. I really don't know much about what is going on with this floor conversion. It's definitely not stock. All I know about it is the handle says Mr. Gasket on it. Okay, that job is done. It's now full. Hopefully the G4 stuff, G5 stuff is the right stuff. It's the right viscosity, and it's multi-purpose. I would imagine it's going to be okay. Another thing I noticed, it's got these weird hangers for the exhaust. I thought it was just some rinky-dink thing, but they're actually both like that, and it goes through the floor. So I don't know why those hangers are there. The rear end had plenty of fluid in it. I took the cap off and it started just pouring out, so it doesn't need any rear end fluid. And it wouldn't hurt to change it, but that is not the plan right now. So next are brakes. The passenger side is fine. The driver's side is loose. That one back there, the rear driver's side, also locks up way too soon. So I need to jack up the rear end too and just double check those and see what's going on. And while I got the rear end jacked up, I will also look at the gas gauge, because I have that. It's not even hooked up in the back. I don't know why. I mean, I haven't even messed with the gas gauge apparently yet. Something else I just noticed, both sides of these coils looks like they've been heated up so that they compress. So someone did that to it as well. So that's definitely modified. But the front brakes are adjusted, so let me go move on to the back.
Well, that is one way to lower the car. I mean, I don't know. It's better than cutting the springs, I guess. I mean, I suppose the guy knew what he was doing, because it is pretty even on both sides. But that's just something I'm going to have to sort out later. So after doing several drives around my neighborhood, I'm ready to take Dirty Gurdy on the open road for the first time. Got to go out and get some gas, because, you need gas, and I made sure I put the non-ethanol kind in it. Then I got to go meet a friend for lunch. And then after that fun kind of shakedown cruise, I got home that night and installed my really super cheap eBay tachometer. All right, check it out. We got a tach gauge now. It's dark, but I've got it installed. So the 2-gauge cluster, I can't really mess with that right now, because to undo it, I don't think there's a way to undo that without having to tear the whole thing apart, especially on that temperature gauge, because it goes all the way to a hard cable into the block, into the freeze-out plug. So I really don't want to mess with that. So I'll just add another gauge cluster next to that gauge cluster. So right now I just got this temporary single one, because that's all I need, and it works. Well, let me get a light up here. Oh, that, and then you can see it. Of course, I don't have the headlight hooked up to it yet. The choke I have all kinds of issues with. I'm still messing with that. But I drove the car around today, and it was mainly happy. So, yeehaw. So she's actually running really, really well. Hey, I wonder if I can turn this light on as it's... Oh, I can. There we go. There we go. So yeah, running great. Drove her around most of the day. Like I said, right now it's having an issue because that's actually the choke. I have to look at that choke and figure out, it doesn't seem to be opening up all the way like it's supposed to. I actually turned the fast idle screw back down one screw or one churn because it was a little bit too high. But once she warms up, I mean, I still haven't even messed with the secondary bowl yet. I don't know if that secondary pump's working. I noticed it was a little bit wet out of the top, so who knows, maybe that thing's overflowing. I don't know. I've got all kinds of stuff I need to look at first. But I've got a tach now, so I'm super excited to see what my RPMs are going to be like now driving around, because today's, like I said, the first day I've been able to drive it around. And then go from there. I got no lights. The only light I have is my interior light. No functioning gauges or no functioning lights in the gauge. And the only gauge that works in this whole thing is the speedometer. Odometer doesn't work. Fuel gauge doesn't work. Temperature gauge not hooked up, so it's hooked up down to there. And everything else is not hooked up either. The heater, I gotta mess with that next. I would have drove it to church this morning, but when I got up, at 7 a.m., I looked out the window and it was all fogged up in here, and I don't have the defroster hooked up or windshield wipers. So I need a windshield wiper motor as well. But yeah, I'll put a standard heater in this car. Don't even want to mess around with a deluxe one, but I'll put a standard one in it. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to clean up, put this away. Yay! So this is the first day driving Gurdy around. Okay, well, I just played with the choke for a little bit and adjusted it clockwise. So it was just barely closed. So I turned on the car and watched the choke physically open up almost all the way up by itself within a couple minutes, it seemed like. And so now the choke is completely open. It should be on the regular idle speed. everything seems okay. I still haven't adjusted the secondaries yet, so who knows if those are even kicking in properly. I think it's the this little teeny tiny air cleaner junk is in the way. So maybe I'll get a bigger air cleaner for it, or the correct size, and that might, because it's so close right here on the linkage, I think that's what's been getting it stuck. So, let's go see how this goes in a minute, I suppose. I installed a very cheap 2x 10-inch air cleaner, same thing I have on my GMC. It fits a lot better, and now I have room for all the linkage for my choke assembly, because I think that's the problem that I'm having, is that little stupid small one that I had on there before. It keeps jamming everything up because the shroud is so teeny tiny. So now there's a lot more room for the choke to work properly. All right, so I drove Gurdy around a little bit more today. She's still running fine. I actually adjusted the carburetor. The secondary bowl had way too much gas going inside of it. The float level was all off. So, as soon as I took the sight plug off, it started pouring out gasoline. Adjusted it to the proper level, and now that weird stumble is gone. So it's actually accelerating much better now. I don't know if that secondary is opening the way it's supposed to, but at least it's not flooding now. So now my next chance, or my next thing I'm going to work on, is the instrument gauge. I'm going to pull it out, see if I can see what's wrong with the odometer, and see if I can fix the fuel gauge. I did go ahead and pull out the instrument cluster again to take a look at the odometer, but it's all sealed inside of there. I don't want to mess with it right now. I also did check out the gas gauge, the gas gauge itself, the display. It seems to be working, because when you ground it, the needle moves. I also played with the temperature gauge a little bit. That was not responsive at all, so I'll have to sort that one out later. I haven't got any video driving yet, so I just got the air filter on there now. So now I have a much larger size air filter, the same size that's on my other Holly carb on my truck. Now it works fine. Now there's not going to be any problem with the linkage getting in the way or anything like that. So there we go. Oh, that wasn't a stop. That's okay though. So here we are, driving around. She's a car. I forgot to hook the speedometer back up. Oops. And that brake light's not hooked up. Oh, man, I gotta go. Okay, after pulling the dash out, messing around with some wires and doing some tracing, come to realize everything's fine, and like, why is this not working? I plug it back in. I test it here and it's working. I plug it back in. Now it's working again. So it's really just because if we watch the slide over here, and I wiggle these wires a little bit, see how it becomes a little erratic? So it's this connection that is bad in here. So this connection is just dirty. Is probably what the problem is. Dirty, or needs to be replaced, whatever. But that's the culprit. Got the light button back up. It works fine now. Tail lights are all working fine now. I even put on the plate. I finally got my classic plate for it, so that's installed now. I reinstalled my dome light bulb. It works now. It's shutting off. Maybe I just had the light turned on at the switch for some reason. Maybe that's what was wrong with it, because there was one night where I was looking out my window and the dome light was on. I'm like, oh no. So that may be what was causing that. I also hooked up the light to that. So I hooked it up to there's a wire right there. I think that's for the heater or something. So I just saw it was a gray wire and hooked up to it, and yep, that's a light. So now I've got lights here. I've got good lights in the dash now. So when it's dark enough in here, I can actually see the instrument cluster. Hopefully my speedometer is working right now. Both my blinker indicators are working correctly now. So that's working. The indicators are working. The blinkers on the outside are working. So I've got the car all put back together again the way it was. I also put in the Optima battery in it that I got from my dad, the Marine one.
That red top one doesn't do anything at all. I think it's completely dead. And so now the next project is to be able to keep driving this car is to put the heater in. So now I've got to start digging through all those heater components and see what I even have, because I don't even exactly know what I got. So that's the next project. And one of these little lights, that light actually turns on when it gets night. So that's kind of cute too. So that'll help out when I put the heater all back together.
The adventure to install the heater begins with, first of all, trying to find all the parts for the heater. Stuff is all over the place. I have stuff in the garage, I have stuff in my shed, and I have stuff in the trunk. All of it is pieces of Dirty Gurdy everywhere. And then after I get all the parts kind of sorted out, I need to figure out how they all go together inside of the car. And the easiest way for me to do that is to pull up the assembly manual.
So I need some kind of giant box, and it looks like it, and the defroster mechanism's in there. So I just need this big box thing. So let's see if that's in the trunk. Here it is. It's in box number 2. There's that big giant unit that has the heater core inside of it. Yay. Okay, step 1 in figuring out if the heater system works. Test the motor. When I bought this, it came with an extra fan or an extra motor that screws on the back, and they're not cheap. But when I plug this in, it works. You can hear that. It's working really well. So the motor works. Awesome. So now I gotta test the heater core, see if that thing is working right. So this is nice. This is in good shape. This is all original paint and everything, it looks like. So yeah, awesome possum. There's one component that works correctly. This is in really good shape. It's still got the factory stamping on it. Look at that, 56. It's got a date on it. Or that's a part number, don't know. Harrison. But yeah, I guess it's got the original paint on it and everything. Oh man, if this core is good, I'll be set. I'll have everything I need. Except for the controls. Those are jacked. But I'll be able to at least get it to work, probably. Alright, here I am still in the process of trying to hook up the heater core. So that fitting's bigger, but I was able to get the 5/8 hose on it. This one wasn't even close at all. It must be 3/8 or some giant size. So I took it out, bought the right fitting. Now it Shucks, or whatever it's called now, O'Reilly's, and got lost all my coolant because I couldn't get the what do you call this thing? A bucket? I'm frustrated. I couldn't get the bucket underneath it. I got coolant all over the place. It's just going terribly poorly. So now I got the right connections. Now I'm going to hook it up, put it together, make sure that the heater core leaks or not. Or test it is, I guess, what I'm really up to. There! Finally, after all this time, got it hooked up now. So as soon as the thermostat opens, the rest of the coolant will start coming through, and I'll be able to verify this thing under pressure. And I want to have it in the real system hopefully this is the right pressure cap, because these things are only 11 pounds or something like that. They're not 16. So yeah, we'll see. Let's check this thing out and see how it goes as soon as it starts warming up. Well, there's my answer. Don't even have the cap on yet. You can see that there's coolant leaking. Oh, poo. That's a setback. Nah.
Well, that was a fail. At least it can be fixed. Now I need to get this heater core out of the heater box. It's just a bunch of screws holding this thing together. Once I get the heater core out of the heater box, I take it down to a radiator shop and have them take a look at it, and hopefully they can fix it. Then a few days go by and I get a call from the radiator shop. They said they tested that bad boy out and it was absolutely fine. So, gotta put it back in the car to test it again.
Alright, here we are, try number 2. So I took this to a radiator shop, And they pressure tested it, excuse me, at 18 pounds, and they said it was completely fine. Recommended to change that. They were going to charge me 15 bucks. I said go ahead, and they still didn't do it, so whatever. But theoretically, this should be fine. The one thing he did repair was the bend that was in the tube. So maybe that's where it was leaking before. So I'm going to let this thing heat up, but it's running pressure through it now, and it's not leaking. Yeah, it's already warm. Yeah, that's already warm. So this should be fine. Especially 18 pounds. What? Okay, so here we go.
Well, for whatever reason, this time it passed. Yay! Now I gotta start getting all these dumb block-off plates off of the firewall to start installing all this heater stuff. So many hack things have been done to this car, I just can't believe it sometimes. At least the license plates are not glued to the firewall, they're just screwed on there. It could have been worse.
Okay, so I've got the heater box installed and the clamps down, and I got them tightened down enough where there's no more leaking anymore. I do have 2 extra holes down there in the bottom, don't know what those are for. I put this license plate back because I'm like, what is this big giant hole for? And then I just realized as I was going to put the motor in that's where the motor mounts. So I got to take that back off again, and then the motor will mount right there where that hole is. So I'm going to remove that and screw it in, and then I'll be ready to test this bad boy out.
Once the license plate was off again, this time I installed the fan motor.
Let's turn on the heater just so I can demonstrate it. So high. Yay! So you can hear that. And then look at this, even low works. Right on. So I don't have any of the cables or anything hooked up. I just have it on full defrost. I mean, that's good enough. I mean, that's really, really good enough. So see right here, there's a big gap where the fresh air inlet comes in. That needs to be better to get more of that outside air. But holy moly, I mean, it's gonna do something. I mean, I could just put tape around that. There's a thing I have in the trunk that goes around that, I bet, so I can just pull this motor off and put it back on and fix it correctly later. But there's low, and I don't know if you noticed, I have to shut this light off. But even when I turn on, the, you can barely see it. It's so bright. Oh, let me do that. But there are lights on this. You can't see it on this. There's lights on that. I know you can't see it, but there's a light in there. You can see it when it's dark. But right on. So now, headlights work, door lights work. So I got my door light, my dome light works. These don't have lights down there. They never did. I got to figure out something for that. I honestly don't know how I'm going to fix that because I need to see my temperature. But yeah, we're really making some progress. This thing I can almost drive around. I just need windshield wipers, tires, and I gotta get the locks so I can lock the car. Still have to do the weather stripping. Most of it I already have for free in the trunk, so I'll just grab that. And I got the glue for it last week. I could just start gluing that the rest of this weekend maybe. And yeah, we got ourselves a car. Right on. So just some more money for tires and the motor. And getting these locks keyed. Yeah, cool. I just did a GPS test. My speedometer says 20 and the GPS said 20, so maybe it is working again. Right on. It just feels like I'm going a lot faster than it says, but she's really driving around. I gotta switch gears. Put it in first. There we go. But yeah, look at this. We got a car, baby. We have everything that a car is except for windshield wipers. I can feel the heat. So the defroster's hooked up, outside air is hooked up. Kind of. The gaskets, there's no gaskets in there, so it's got some leakage for sure. I can just put some tape around it or something later, but doesn't matter. It is at least working. It's better than the standard heater that I have in my 57. Cool. first night driving the car.
Nice. The heater is installed and working, and most of the lights are now working inside of the car. Yay! Coming up in future episodes of the 56 Revival series, I get the weather stripping installed around all the doors, and I free up the door locks on the doors so I can try to lock that thing and drive it around. I replace the gas gauge with one that isn't broken. And then to round out the doors, I put new rubber door stops around all the door jambs. And I install a wiper motor so I can drive around in the rain and see. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see those videos when they come out. And if you enjoyed this video, could you go ahead and give it a thumbs up to make YouTube happy? Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the Dirty Gurdy adventure thus far. Have a fantastic day and get out and drive those Tri-5s.